on today's StoryBeat.
The beauty of acting is that you have to be there in that moment. And when you're in that moment, it's an amazing thing because we're not in the moment in real life. But when you're on that set in that stage and that director says action, you're listening, you're receiving, you're reacting, you're there.
This is StoryBeat with Steve Cuden, a podcast for the creative mind. StoryBeat explores how masters of creativity develop and produce brilliant works that people everywhere love and admire. So join us as we discover how talented creators find success in the worlds of imagination and entertainment. Here now is your host, Steve Cuden.
Thanks for joining us on StoryBeat. We're coming to you from the Steel City, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My guest today, Alretha Thomas, has found career success in the second half of her life as an award-winning novelist, playwright, and actress. A resilient survivor of childhood trauma, Alretha is a former model who, as an actress, has appeared in numerous films, TV series, and commercials. She also appeared on two iconic soap operas, Days of Our Lives and General Hospital. Currently, she's a series regular, playing Anastasia Devereaux on Tyler Perry's Assisted Living, which is in its fifth season on BET. As a playwright, Alretha has won accolades and awards for her plays Civil Rites, A Shrine to Junior, Mommie and Clyde, Sacrificing Simone, and Grandpa's Truth. She also wrote One Woman, Two Lives that starred Kellita Smith of The Bernie Mac Show and was directed by four-time NAACP Image Award Best Director recipient Denise Dowse. Alretha, who holds a degree in journalism from USC, has written 15 novels, over 500,000 of which have been sold and downloaded, receiving glowing reviews from readers, book clubs, and critics. Her first novel, Daughter Denied, was launched in 2008. A 4-book series, Cass and Nick, spawned from her novel Married in the Nick of Nine, was acquired by Soulmate Publishing, and she was awarded the Jesse Redmond Fawcett Literary Award for her indie novel For Ladies Only. Her latest book, The Daughter Between Them, was recognized by Kirkus Reviews as one of the top thriller indie books of 2024. I've read The Daughter Between Them and was completely drawn in by the wonderfully complex, unfolding mystery thriller as told through Alretha's masterful storytelling and her deeply compelling characters. She's had several videos go viral, including 3 that have received more than 2 million views. For more about Alretha, please check out alrethathomas.com. So for all those reasons and many more, I'm truly honored to welcome the brilliant writer, actress, and producer Alretha Thomas to StoryBeat today. Alretha, thanks so much for joining me.
Wow, if you can see, I'm grinning from ear to ear. I'm like, wow, that's a lot. Like, whoa, that's me. Thank you so much. That was so thorough.
It's a great pleasure.
Appreciate
It's a
it.
great pleasure to
I
have you on
give
the show.
God the glory. That's so great. It's so great to be here. Thank you for having me.
So let's go back in time just a little bit. Which came first for you, acting or writing?
Oh my gosh, the acting came first. Well, then the writing came first. And I say that because the first thing I ever wrote was when I was in the 5th grade. And our teacher assigned a short story. She gave us a short story assignment. And I wrote mine. And it was, I could say, my first romance because it was about this little girl working in a grocery store. And she had a crush on one of the bag boys. So the teacher, after we had written it, she came in and she said, "Oh, you guys did a good job, but there was one story that really stood out, and it was mine." And she read it to the class, and I was floored. I couldn't believe it. That was like huge. And the class, they were riveted. I'm like, oh my God. So I think there was like a little seed for the writer person in there at that time. And then I went on and went into journalism. And then later on, then I went into acting and then went back into writing. So I go on like this meandering road, of getting there.
Well, the acting is involving lots of words, so that's not uniquely different in that way, but the writing of it certainly is. Were you interested in words as a little girl? Was that something that fascinated you, reading things?
I loved to read when I was a little girl because I loved to escape because I had a challenging childhood. And we had a bookmobile and we were in the projects and the bookmobile would come through And I would be running hard for that book, like the ice cream truck, how the kids running for the ice cream truck. I would be running for the bookmobile
Right.
because that was like my treat. Because then I would get my book and I'd be able to, get into it, Nancy Drew, all that kind of stuff, and just fantasize that I was these characters. So yeah, I love words and reading as a little girl.
So, as a reader, who you were obviously reading stories of some kind. You probably weren't reading physics books at that age. You were reading stories, and so
Yeah.
were you also very imaginative at that time? Is that where the part of the acting came from? Is that you could imagine yourself as another character?
I believe so. And I even remember in elementary school, you know how you have the school plays? I would always somehow end up in a lead role.
Hmm.
And I remember one time I even played Scrooge. And one time I was out, and the teacher, she told me, she said, it wasn't the same when you weren't here. There was something like I had a natural energy, I believe. And even in junior high school, there was a show in San Francisco. That's where I grew up, born in Oakland, raised in San Francisco. There was a show called Zoom. It was like a children's variety show.
Sure.
And they were looking for kids in junior high school age to be in it. So they pulled me, CBS in San Francisco. My mom was sickly and she couldn't take me, but my big sister took me to CBS. But I was so broken because of the abuse. I was introverted. I couldn't really express myself. Go figure, that's hard to believe, I'm sure, at this point. But I was very taciturn, very reticent. I couldn't, I was withdrawn. So I wasn't the right type of child for the show, but they auditioned me for it. So because outside of being put on the spot, I did have like this kind of outgoing personality.
How important do you think that the acting that you've done has informed the writing that you've done, and vice versa? How important has the writing that you've done informed the acting?
I think the acting has helped with the writing because when I'm writing the characters, I'm the characters. I become the character. So I write first person present.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm writing, I am the character. I am Leslie, who's one of the characters in the book you mentioned, The Daughter Between Them. And so when I write out as an acting, when I get a character, I do a bio on the character in acting, like Anastasia Devereaux. The writer, when Tyler Perry created that character, there were certain attributes that he gave her. I take those, but then I add on characters. And that's the same thing when I do in acting. In writing, when I get ready to write my book and I'm writing a character, I do a bio. Where was she born? Who does she date? What is she like? I do the same thing when I create. So they go hand in hand. I'm doing both things for both characters because just like the book, when you read it as a reader, you want to believe it. You have to buy into it. Just like when you're watching a character on television, you have to buy into it.
Absolutely.
So I have to make it real. I have to make it real for both sides. So they really complement each other.
So you really do your due diligence as an actress as well as a writer. That's what you do, is you're researching and deciding what those traits are that you're going to work on.
I do. And some people do method acting. There are different schools of thought, different types of acting. Every actor has their own process. For me, I like to keep the character separate from my life. If I have to cry in a scene, I don't want to use something that happened to me in my own life. I want it to be pure. I want to create that character's real pain and drama.
You want to be in the moment.
Yeah, I can relate to the character because I've experienced pain and loss. Like one time I had an audition for a woman whose son had been killed, and she had all his pictures on her phone. And someone stole the phone. So she literally had no more pictures of her son. So she had to do a press conference. She was begging the perpetrator to bring her phone back. So when I went for the audition, I had to make that boy real. I don't have children, but I had to make him real. So I went on Google, I found a young man, I printed his picture out, I put it in a frame. I used my imagination to think about when I conceived him, when he was born, elementary school, high school. I literally set up and imagined all this stuff and made it so real that when I looked at that picture, I really believed that was my son. Then I went through the process of him being killed and the funeral and all of that. When I got to the audition, I lost it. When I did the audition and I read it, I lost it as a mother, and the casting director and the writer, they were blown away. They were like, Oh my God, that was so powerful. They were trying to figure out how did but I made it. I convinced myself that I was the mother and that was my son. And over that few days' time, I just immersed myself. And that's what I do the same thing with my character. When I get scripts and there's something in there, I'll make it true to me and I'll use my imagination because that's all life is. Really think about what did you do last night? What did you have for breakfast this morning? Where does it pop up? In your head. You're not going through the specific different things of it. You have an image of what happened. And so that's what I do to create. I create those images as though they happen.
And the same thing as you're writing in your books.
Same thing in the book. When I'm writing a book, but I'm getting to experience it in the book, real time, because I'm writing like when my character, Barbara, is doing this dirty deed, and I don't want to give it away, I don't want spoilers,
Right, sure.
but she's doing it. So I'm in her, and I'm seeing her in my mind doing it. And I'm doing it, going through the suitcase and pulling up, and I'm feeling it, I'm going through it. There have been times where I've been at my computer where I just start crying if it's a sad scene, because I'm literally I'm that character and I'm experiencing it in the moment, real time. That's my process.
Do you know that Eugene O'Neill, the great playwright Eugene O'Neill, when he was writing Long Day's Journey into the Night, he apparently would go up to a third floor, a room in his house, and when he would come down at the end of the day, he was completely wrung out. He had been crying all day from writing.
Oh my God, because he's feeling it. He's writing and he's feeling it. And you can feel. Like I can read a book or watch something on television, and an actor could be crying their eyes out, and I'm just stoic. I feel nothing. And I believe because that's technical crying, they're not really feeling it, that actor. Because when another human being feels it, you're going to feel it. I remember Losing Isaiah, a movie with Jessica Lange and Halle Berry. They had this scene where they're walking down and they're both wanting that boy and they're both crying, and I lost it. I was drenched. Because I could feel through the screen both those actresses were really experiencing the loss of that boy in real time. And it made me feel it.
That's what it's all about, is that
It wasn't technical crying. They really felt it. They went through it.
You know, as writer of fiction, as well as a performer, your job, our jobs as writers, is to create a visceral experience for the reader or the viewer, and that's pure gut punch. And if you can get them to
that part,
then you win. That's what it's all about, is that visceral experience. Do you think of yourself now? You've got many different functions that you have in the world of the arts. I'm just wondering, do you think of yourself now more as a playwright, a novelist, an actress, or are you some combo of all of them?
That's a great question. I think it's a combo of all of them because I just finished filming a season of Assisted Living. I was there the whole month of June and 15 episodes. So I was fully actress. I was living in a hotel. I was going to set. I was being pampered. That's full actress. That's just a month ago. Now I come back to this play where I'm producer, director, writer, casting director. So now I'm a playwright, a producer, director, so I'm doing them all not simultaneously, but alternating. So I'm all of it.
And I think that that's right. And you're able to use what you do as an actress. Again, going back a question or two ago, you use what you have as an actress and I assume, and I'll ask you this question about Tyler Perry, what have you learned from him? Because obviously he's a legend at what he does. What have you learned from him that informs you not just as an actress, but as a writer and director?
Well, the one thing, I've met him on several occasions, but I've never gotten to work with him because when I came onto the show in season 2, he had turned it over to other writers and directors. So I've never gotten to work with him. But I'm familiar with his work, obviously. I see his work, but one thing I do know, what I have learned from him, is to be true to yourself. Because no matter who the critics are, no matter what they say, Tyler is true to himself, true to his base, true to his story. His mom, he said a long time ago, inspired him, the women in his life where he saw them struggle. And he had compassion and empathy for these women around him as he grew up that struggle. And if you look at a lot of his body of work, it's about Black women in the struggle and trying to make it, because that's where his heart and soul is. And I learned that. Go with your heart and soul. And I tend to focus on family story. If you read a lot of books, it's this family. It's this mother, daughter, family together. The play that I've written right now, A Girl's Guilt Trip, it's two women, relationships. That's it. Relationships, whether it be best friends, mother, daughter, the Cass and Nick, romantic relationship. Mine is a focus of relationships and trying to navigate the pitfalls and the minefields of relationships where people have disagreements, they have misunderstandings, they have falling outs, they have grudges, they stop talking to each other. That whole arena is my niche.
You're obviously on a show for almost 5 years that's all about family.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And relationship. There are two men there that want my character, Anastasia. She's got two people vying for her affection, Vinny and Judge Junie.
And that's what makes great storytelling, I think, great, is the fact that it is about relationships and family. Most audiences are not interested in places, events, or things. They're interested in relationships between characters,
That part.
people,
So true.
and especially conflict between people. That's what it's
So
all about.
true.
And your book is filled with conflict, which is,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
that's what makes it so compelling. And it's like
Thank you.
popcorn at a movie. You got to eat it and more and more because it's
I'm
filled
so
with conflict.
glad I appreciate you reading it. That means a lot to me that you read it.
That's what I do. I believe in
Mhm.
doing my due diligence on this particular show. I read the books. Did you have a sense from the day that you started acting and writing way back when that you would be doing it throughout your life? I know that you took a break for a while, but did you think you would be doing it forever?
It's crazy because I went to USC for journalism. I wanted to be a journalist. And
And I went to USC in theater.
gosh, look at
So
that.
we're both
And
Trojans.
it's so funny. I know, right? Yay, victory. So the thing is crazy, in high school, I was on the speech team and there was a drama team and a lot of my friends were in drama. And I thought about it, but I was like, oh, that's just too precarious and I don't want to be waiting on tables, so naive, thinking that broadcast journalism was going to be any different. So, I graduated and we were in a deep recession and anybody that had a job was not leaving. And in the journalism world, you work your way through the small markets. You start out in the boonies and move your way up through LA, New York and all of that, but no one was leaving their job. I even was in conversation with the general manager at a news station in Alaska. That's how badly I
Wow.
wanted to work. So I had to get work. So I started working in office jobs. And then I got caught up in the office job stuff. And then I had the emotional fallout from my childhood and I was going crazy but prior to that, what happened was I ended up I was married before my current relationship, and we went to see a taping of The Jeffersons. And a producer saw me and said, oh, you make a great model, right? So then I started dabbling in modeling. This is after I had closed the door on that news reporting. I didn't think that was going to happen because I'm working, in regular day jobs and doing the modeling. And then something hit me and I was like, I think I went to a go-see. That's where you go with your little book to the modeling agency. And she said, you're too short. You probably need to go into acting or something like that, or commercials. They just felt I was too short to be a runway model. I'm 5'7", right? 5'6.5", 5'7". You have to be 5'8" and above. So I started studying, and that's when I got into acting. And I studied for 7 years with this great teacher named Joel Asher. And I got some under fives and some soaps, and I did some B movies. And then I started going kind of batty. I started meeting the wrong people, being in the wrong places, and got caught up. And I had to just take a step. So I left acting. I left it for 23 years. Now, in the back of my head, I had a feeling I might go back, but I wasn't sure. But I worked in corporate America. And in that 23-year period, though, I started writing books because I had always said, Steve, that I wanted to write a book about a girl who had a dysfunctional childhood, kind of loosely based on my life,
Sure.
that becomes victorious in the end. So when I married my husband, I was telling him I wanted to write this book. And that was my very first book, Daughter Denied. And so I had been in the acting, left the acting, started the book writing. And then I was in my church and I started writing plays in my church. And the next thing you know, I started writing more books, writing more plays. And I did that the whole time I was away from acting. And in 2016, I said, okay, I think I have enough money saved And I talked to my husband. I said, if I can make it work, would you mind if I went back to acting full time? So I'd be acting and writing full time. And he said, go for it. So I got me an agent. And for 4 years, I got a commercial, little soaps here and there. And then COVID hit. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just getting going. And now the world is shut down.
Of course.
Little did I know that I would get an audition for a show called Tyler Perry Assisted Living during the pandemic. When I got the audition, I looked at it because it said possibly recurring. And the first person I thought of was Felicia Rashad because the character was much older than me. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to get this, but I'm going to do it. And I had auditioned for this casting director before. So I put 100% in it. But I've divorced myself from it. And then one day I was just around the house and I got a call. My agent, she goes, oh, they're making us an offer. And I'm like, what? Who, what? Because she said, oh, Tyler Perry, they want to give you the role of Anastasia Devereaux. They're flying you out this weekend.
Wow.
I started screaming. I was like, oh my God, this is God, this is God, this is God. And so we had a COVID test. Every time you turn around, we had to take COVID tests. Tyler chartered a jet just for the cast. We flew. When we got to his studio, we were all quarantined at the base, at the studio. And we tested 2-3 times a week. Nobody ever got sick. He had it down to a science. He had the blueprint for how to do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we got in there and we shot that second season and the rest is history. And then the fourth season, they made me a series regular. But that was the evolution of how it all came about.
That 23-year break was actually fueling your desire to make a go at it eventually.
In the back of my mind, I knew I was going to come back.
Sure.
I said, I'm going to come back. And it was better because I wasn't struggling financially. I didn't have to work a job and try to do auditions. I had some level of stability. So I was able to really pursue it. And then I didn't have to be tied to a 9-to-5. I could do it full time.
So I want to go back a half a step. You got this degree in journalism from USC and you attempted to make a go of it, but it didn't really work for you. But are you able to use your journalistic studies in your writing? Are you thinking of yourself as a reporter, as a novelist? Are you reporting from your mind, from your imagination?
Well, it's funny you said that. It's a great question because just recently and people always tell me, you're an investigator. You know how to dig and find stuff. Because that journalistic investigator, curious mind, it is still there. And I do use it, and I do use it to research in writing my books. I use it to research and writing my characters. I use it to research the play that I'm doing right now. I'm working on the program. So my co-star, I said, I know she's busy. I said, I'm going to go in and put her bio together for the program. So I went on, and of course, the internet, hey, we didn't have that back in the day, Steve, when we were coming up.
No,
we didn't have all that.
No, we
didn't have where you had all this information at our fingertips. There was no AI. There was no GP chat. We didn't have any of that. We literally had to go to the library. You had to get on the phone. When I wrote my first book, not to go too far off the beaten path, but when I wrote my first book, I literally had to go call the train station and find out what was the route from here to here. I had to go to the library. I had to get on the phone and the yellow pages and ask people. Now it's a smorgasbord. All I have to do is just click, 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 click. So I just Google her name and I saw she did this, she did that, I pulled it together and my writing skills helped me. So I was able to put her little bio. She was floored when she saw that. She said, how did you get on it? How did you know all that about me? I said, oh, my secret, But yeah.
Because, we didn't have that back in the day. You didn't have any of that information. You did have to go to the library, and then you'd have to spend a lot of time digging and digging to find anything.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about the 3 videos that have gone viral. I'm curious about those. What are they?
TikTok is really funny because the thing that you don't put anything into, that goes viral. The thing that you spend an hour trying to organize and tape and video and edit goes nowhere. So one of them is like a DoorDash type thing where it's like you go in and you pretending like you DoorDash so that you could get somebody else's food.
Oh.
So it's like I run in there and then the video has me running back to the car and I'm like, and you can hear the person saying, hey, come back here, come back. And I close the door to get in there. People love that. I don't know why that. And it's so funny. It's like 2 million, almost 3 million people. For some reason, I'm still scratching my head. Why did they go with that? Why did they? And then there's one that I did when I was coming back from Sacramento. And you see the rabbit at the airport, right? Why do people think I was Kamala Harris? I came out, I have the video, and so TikTok has this thing where you can cut and paste stuff. So I have a thing where I downloaded where you have all these paparazzi taking pictures. So, and I had somebody video me coming out of the airport. So when I'm walking out, it literally is like all these paparazzi are taking my picture. And the wig I had on and how I was carrying myself, I did kind of look like Kamala. So everybody was thinking I was Kamala. It blew up. They were thinking I was her. It blew up because they thought I was Kamala. Yeah. And then the other one I did was a McDonald's one. I got this idea to do, and there's a creative mind. I said, Happy Meal. I'm going to act like I want my money back because the meal didn't make me happy. So I literally went in a McDonald's and I said, can I speak to the manager? And I said, I need my money back. I'm dissatisfied. I said, this Happy Meal did not make me happy. I'm still upset about my boyfriend. My life is still not good. I thought it was going to change me. I'm still depressed. And I just went on there. And it blew up. People just thought it was hilarious.
Well, that's a very funny concept. You want your money back because the Happy Meal didn't make you happy. I think
it didn't make me happy. Yeah.
Extremely funny. So I want to spend a little time certainly talking about The Daughter Between Them, which is the book I read, obviously. Explain to the listeners what the book is actually about. Can you pitch it to us?
Okay, so The Daughter Between Them is about two women, two mothers who are so different, so opposite. Leslie's a reporter. She's trying to be the first Black news editor on her job, and she has two teenage daughters. She lives in a fictional town called Dancing Hills. All my books take place in Dancing Hills. That's my fictional town. And Barbara Morris, she's in New York, and she's 10 years earlier. And she and her husband wake up, and their daughter's missing. And so both women are in peril. They're both afraid for their daughters. Barbara may not be as innocent as she seems to be. There is a connection between these two women. And as you read the book, the connection is revealed and it's jaw-dropping.
That it is.
So the mystery is, where is Nancy, Barbara Morris's daughter? Where is she? Where she was home in bed that night, she's gone. Where is she? And that's what they're trying to find out. And then the question on Leslie's side, who's trying to hurt my daughters? Because her daughters, someone runs into their car, and then someone throws a rock into the window. So she has, and she says it's in the opening of the book, a past, and she has enemies, and she's changed her identity. So her fear is, have my enemies, my foe, have they found me? And is what's happening with me? So the reader, you're trying to figure out, where is Nancy, who's hurting, and then as you go on, it's revealed how these women are connected.
How did you come up with the idea of these two separate mothers, and then you separated it throughout the 2010s for a 10-year period there? How did you come up with that concept?
I actually came up with it in an earlier book, and I call it The Then and Now, where we're in the present day, and then you're in the past, and you have two people, and then there's a mysterious connection between the two characters, and then it comes together. So I actually started it with that book. And it went so well, I decided to come up with it again. But I like the idea. It just came to me. I said, okay, I want something to be happening in the present that is a result of something that happened in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want the audience to be able to try to figure it out. And then it's revealed. It just hit me. I just came up with it. It just came to me. And then the mother-daughter situation, I think sometimes, because, I lost my mom when I was 14, so I didn't have her very long. And vicariously, I kind of lived through these mother-daughter stories. And that's why I wanted to do the mother-daughter. I wanted to show the love of a mother for their child. And you clearly see that in both cases here, and especially in the end, you see the sacrifice that one of the mothers takes for her daughter.
So you have a very complex structure in this book because you're bouncing back and forth.
I had to lay it out. I had to really detail it. I had very good outline. I outlined everything. And one thing that's working for me now that I didn't used to do, early on when I would write my books, I would write so many pages, print it out, and then read it. Then I'd write so many pages, print out, and read it. And so what that was doing, it was restricting me because I would think, because if I had an idea, I said, well, if I go put that in there, then it's going to change your pagination. It's going to do. So one day I said, what if you don't print out anything? Leave it an open board. Just keep it open and just go in there and change and move stuff around and do. It was a game changer. Because by doing that, that's why I was able to do this book so well, because I would remember something. Okay, you did that. You got to go back and do this to make that work, because then that's not going to make sense, because that's going to do that. So it was like a game of chess. I was able to go in there, move pieces, and do things by not printing. I never printed.
Mm-hmm.
I saved a lot. I downloaded save, but I never printed. And it just left me where I could fix stuff and change things around, but I had very distinct outlines. And then some of the stuff was kind of serendipitous. I don't know. Some of the stuff was almost mystical, because there was times where things would line up and I'd be like, I didn't try to get it to line up like that, but it literally would line up perfectly from the past to the present, and especially when they came together. And I was like, wow, it would scare me sometimes. How did that happen? But it was perfect.
Well, yeah, it dovetails perfectly.
Yeah, it was wonderful. But a lot of, like I said, plotting, outlines, and not printing out, just being able to go in the computer and just make things and change things around.
Did you feel like it freed you up to be a little looser in how you were approaching it?
Oh, totally. Because I didn't have to worry about pages. I could just go in it like a painter, just go in and do, oh, I want to go over here. Oh, let me go do this. Let me go put this in. Oh, yeah, I need to put that in. And I didn't have to worry about the chapter changing, or I'm going to have to fix this chapter happening to, just free. It totally freed me.
So the story itself revolves around this life-changing secret that we've been hinting around. We're not going to give it away. How do your characters handle that burden of dealing with such a big secret? Because secrets have a tendency to drag people down.
Well, Leslie, I believe it kept her in fear. She lived in fear, and she projected that fear onto her daughter. She became like a helicopter mom. She was so controlling, and they tell her that. One of the daughters has an outburst, Jillian, it's like, you just smother us, it's too much. It had her living in fear. And they say the greatest thing you fear is what you're going to attract. And she just did. She did. And Barbara, her situation with her carrying that, she knew what she had done. So she was living in fear too. Both women really were living in fear of being caught. So Barbara was on edge all the time, and, wondering how this thing was going to play out, and was she going to be able to get her daughter? Was she going to be able, because her biggest thing was getting the love of her daughter. Her biggest thing is, she was the boogeyman to her daughter. She never was able to get her daughter's love because of who she was, and the things she did to her daughter. And one of the things that's interesting to me, a lot of reviewers, people ended up having sympathy for her. She's a villain, but one of these villains that you kind of had sympathy for, which I liked and I hoped.
That's what she is. She's a villain who you feel for, which I think is the ideal way to write a story. Leo Tolstoy, who wrote a couple of good books back in the day, he once famously said that the best stories are stories between good and good. And so if you feel if you feel for both the protagonist and the antagonist, wow, that's powerful, because that conflict is huge.
Exactly. And the other thing that I learned, no one is all good and no one is all bad. No one.
Definitely true. So what do you think the impact is on families' secrets? Because that's what you're largely exploring in the book. What impact do secrets have on families?
Illness, sickness, because usually the secrets revolve around something that is resentment, hurt, molestation, abuse, something like that, and you're carrying that, and you're not at ease, so you're going to produce disease, and it produces a lot of illness. It produces a lot of stress. You can't be yourself. You can't fully love. You can't fully embrace. You can't be authentic, because you're carrying that. You're as sick as your deepest secret. I try not to have any secrets. I'm going to share it with somebody, because I just don't want to carry that. And I think that's what happens with families. You don't get help. You don't get the healing. We read these stories in the newspaper all the time, and not in the newspaper, but online. We see these things all the time where it comes out where, there was incest in a family, there was molestation in a family, there was somebody being battered, and they're hiding it and they're keeping it a secret. My play has some of that in it. The two characters right now, one of them was hiding abuse, and it ravished all the relationships between the two couples.
So there's little bits and pieces of your own life in all these things, aren't there?
I believe so, yes.
And that sort of has to bubble up through you as the creator of the story and the character.
It does. I can relate to it. I can, yeah.
Why did you set on the 2010s? Was there something specific about that period that was necessary for you to write the story?
Not really. Okay, well, one part I did take into consideration. Anytime I'm writing after COVID, I do take that into consideration because I know the world was shut down. So,
and has changed. We've changed.
Yeah, and if you notice in the Leslie part, as it's coming to a close, we're going into COVID. We're going into the COVID because they talk about the vaccination. So I wanted to write the book prior to the outbreak. So that's why I started when I did, because I didn't want to be caught in the midst of that. And I didn't want that to have to I didn't want the focus of the story to be that. So that's why I wrote it where it was prior to COVID.
As you're writing, do you think about the audience that's going to read it? Do you think about your readers, or are you writing it just for you?
I'm thinking about the readers. When I'm writing, I'm like, okay, how is that going to impact them? Like, there's one thing I did with Barbara, and I don't want to do a spoiler. And I thought about it, and I said, I don't know how are they going to feel about this? And I thought, because I read, so I know how I feel about things. But I said, well, as a reader, how would you feel? Yeah, it's necessary to move forward. I had to do that act for the story to move forward. So I had to sacrifice this person. But I felt like, as a reader, I gauged myself with the other readers. I can live with that. They're going to live with that. So I do put myself in the reader's shoes.
Well, I think that's helpful, especially in a mystery, to know how what you're doing is going to impact that reader. Because if you throw the reader off in some way and cheat, there's a rule in writing. You can deceive an audience, but you can't cheat them. And if you cheat, that won't work. But you can be deceptive as long as you resolve that deception, especially in a mystery, which is what you have here.
Exactly.
How long did it take you to write the book?
It took me 8 months to have a decent draft. And then after that, I have a developmental editor, and I always pass things to her to look at it and see if it makes sense. And she'll come back and say, or, that's not working. Or do you really want to do that? So I'll get notes, and then I'll incorporate, and then I'll have a few beta readers check it out. So I think after a year, I felt comfortable querying it because I really want to get representation for it. And I end up getting a huge New York agent interested in it. And I was shocked. I was on set the day she called me. And I think it was my second year of being on the show. And we were talking, and I was amazed that I had this agent. And so she repped me, and unfortunately, she wasn't able to get me a deal. And I really believe this. She doesn't agree with me, but I believe because I have 14 books on Amazon, and even though a 500,000 have been downloaded and sold, enough haven't been sold, because the publishing industry is a business.
Oh, yeah.
When you go through with Simon & Schuster, random other people, they have the marketing department, they have the finance department, they have the legal department. They're looking at this, and they're crunching numbers. They're looking at the numbers, and all they got to do is run my books. And if they don't see the number, and I got 14, I'm a proven failure. They're not taking in the fact that I never had a big publishing house behind me or machine or been able to get blurbs from Stephen King and stuff like that on my book, and to get put out there. B.A. Paris, a blurb from her. They're not looking at that. I've been an indie, and so you're lucky to sell 100 copies. So I really believe that hurt me. I promise you, if The Daughter Between Them had been my first book, there would have been a bidding war.
It's a catch-22, isn't it? You need the publishing house to go big. And when you don't have the big publishing house and you don't get as big, then the big publishing house doesn't want you. So it's a catch-22.
It is, yeah.
And it is
But
all
I
a
believe
numbers
there
game.
would have been a bidding war for that book if it had been my first book.
Well, I happen to think that this book would make a marvelous movie or a little
Oh
miniseries.
my gosh, what amazing.
So have you given it to Tyler Perry to let him read it?
No, I haven't. I don't have a relationship like that. I don't feel comfortable doing.
Of
I
course.
have given him a book before my last one. Nothing was said about it. So I'm still hoping that out of the blue something might happen from this. Somebody might get a clue. I'm hoping somebody will see it. I mean, it's been out there, it's out there, and it is a movie. It would make an amazing movie.
Oh, I think it would make a terrific movie. I think that,
Yeah, it would.
it's all there. It just needs to be developed as a script. And you are a script writer. You're a playwright. So
No, I don't. I don't do screenplays. I've
no?
been down that road. Oh no, I stay away from trying to write screenplays.
What?
I am
Why?
nobody's screenplay.
Why?
I can't do it. I'm not good. It's a different animal. I even
It is a
study. It's a
different animal.
different animal. How they write, how you gotta say it with pictures, you gotta say it short, change it, you gotta. I stay in my lane. I know my limitations.
So
Somebody want to option this book for film, they could take it. Option it, get your screenwriter. I'm not the one. I want to be in it, though. I want to be in the book. And you know who I want to play? I want to play Barbara's mother.
yeah, of course.
That's
You'd
who
be
I want to
perfect
play.
for that.
Barbara's mother, the villain, the villain.
Now, you're a playwright, so you obviously understand the language of it coming out of people's mouths, which is what a playwright does. And you are an actress, so you know what it's like to get a script and have it come out of your mouth, the words, and out of other people's mouths. All you really need to understand is the technical elements of screenwriting. Now,
I know, but I overwrite. You can't overwrite in screenplays.
Okay, so let me disabuse you this much. You can overwrite and then be very judicious as an editor.
I don't like it. I don't like screenwriting. I'll let somebody else do it.
I've done it for so long, so to me, it's.
See, you can do it. You can do the screen. Why don't you? Okay, see, you do the screenplay for this book, and let's look for a deal together. We go 50-50.
The deal just got made, I guess. Could you tell as you were writing the book that it was going to work? Could you tell it was working?
I could. Oh, I could. Oh, yeah. It was juicy.
I was
going on, I said, this is good. Oh, my gosh, this is good.
What do you think a novelist needs to do to secure not just a publishing deal, but that the audience is going to like it? What do you think is the key? Is it that conflict between characters? What do novelists need to do?
Strong characters, strong flawed characters, and a great story. A great story. It varies genre to genre. You know, I'm thinking suspense. You know, it could be something different. I think it crosses genre. I think great character and great story crosses all genres. I think that's true of any genre.
I agree.
You know, for suspense, mystery, obviously, you got to know how this thing, you got to have a great ending. You have to have great red herrings. You have to know ahead of time how this thing is going to unfold. You know, you got to be one step of the reader. You can't be predictable. You don't want the reader to know what's coming next. You always got to be thinking, is that what they would think is going to happen next?
You have to know. You, the writer, have to know what's coming next.
Yeah, and you can't be the obvious.
Right.
It just can't be.
One of the things that I learned along the way is that the way that a story comes out or ends, or I don't mean end as in the ending of the story, but how it winds up, it should feel inevitable, even though all along the way you don't know where it's going. It should feel inevitable, which is what your book does. It feels inevitable at the end.
Yeah.
And so that's an important characteristic of what I think of as successful storytelling, is that that's the way it's supposed to be.
It makes sense.
Even though it's not predictable.
Yes.
But you, the writer, have to know.
That's a great observation you just made there. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, thank you. It's actually not my observation. It's the observation of many people who I've learned from. So, that's the way that if you think that way, it's very important. So I want to talk for just a few moments about acting, which we've talked a little bit about. Do you think that being a series regular has taught you something about acting that you otherwise would not have learned?
It does. We shoot very fast. We shoot 22 episodes in 3.5 weeks. And you know, the average Hollywood episodic or series, you're going 5 to 6 months, if not longer, to do a whole season. So what it has taught me as an actor is that I can do anything I put my mind to if I focus. And what it has taught me, that there's a joy to acting, and there's a piece of acting that I didn't appreciate when I was in acting 10 years ago, and that's being in the moment. The beauty of acting is that in doing that many shows, you get to see it. If you're a guest star here, guest star there, you may not appreciate it. But when you're working in a 3-week period and you're in there and you're going to set and you're filming 2 episodes and you're in that, you have to be there in that moment. And when you're in that moment, it's an amazing thing because we're not in the moment in real life. Even though I'm talking to you right now, I could be thinking about when I'm having lunch for tomorrow, what's dinner is in an hour, whatever. You know what I mean? But when you're on that set in that stage and that director says action, you're there. You're listening, you're receiving, you're reacting, you're listening, you're receiving, you're reacting. And then when he said cut and you come out of it, you're like, oh, you were gone. At least that is it for me. And so I always love to see the show because I want to see what everybody else, like everybody else. I didn't see it because I'm not on the outside looking at myself.
Right,
I'm in the
right.
moment. So I have no idea what that scene was. So I get to sit back and look and say, oh my God, I was doing that. You know, I'm looking and like, wow. You know, I'm in it and I'm feeling it and I'm in the moment of that character. And it's an amazing feeling. It's like meditation almost.
Have you done scenes where you knew you weren't in the moment?
Oh, yeah.
So what do you do? How do you get yourself there?
When I get in the moment, I get in the moment. The moment I see I'm not in the moment, I get in the moment.
Do you have a trick to get there? Or you're just telling yourself that?
I just focused. I remember I'm Anastasia. And I take a little breath and I'm there and I'm in the moment.
And by the way, in my chatting with you, my only relationship to seeing you prior to now was on watching the show. And so that character is not you. That's clearly true.
You see, not at all.
Not at all.
Totally.
She's a little more highfalutin. You're not. You're more down to earth. And
I'm so down to earth.
Yeah. And so
it's a totally different person.
Totally different person.
They gave me wonderful start with her, and then I created a whole bio for her. I have a whole bio. She had 8 husbands. I have pictures of all my 8 husbands. I carry that around with me. I have how we met. And then when different episodes come up, I add to it because they may tell, like one of my husbands I found out was a race car driver. One of my husband's mothers did hypnosis. So I keep adding to her bio, and that keeps making her a more fuller and complex character. But the only thing she and I have in common are that we're actresses. We love family, but I didn't have 8 husbands. She has a more colorful love life than I do. She's more flamboyant than I do. She's more vain than I am. But I don't judge her. That's who she is. I love her.
Of course.
I love Anastasia. That's who she is. But I understand who she is.
Am I correct? That's not her real name, right? She has a different name.
Willie Mae Jackson.
Willie Mae Jackson becomes Anastasia Devereaux.
She changed it. And it's the biggest compliment I got was from my director. I think my first season, he said, "You really understand this character." That was like, if you hear that from a director, that's the greatest compliment you can get.
It doesn't get better than that if you understand the character. You certainly don't want to hear the opposite. You don't want to hear, you don't get this.
No, you don't.
So obviously you did something right when you got to there.
Yeah.
And when you're on set, can you feel that energy shift into performance?
I can. I'm there and I just get into her body, her body as well. And then I'm there and I'm her and it's a certain way she carries herself and her carriage and her air and whole thing and her whole life comes with her on stage. The whole world of Anastasia, from Bugs, Tussle, Georgia, where she was, and going up and all. I carry all the husbands, all the lives, the red carpets, the Oscars, all that comes with me when I come on set. Just like everything comes with Alretha when I'm sitting here, the childhood, the abuse, the success, the cries, the tears, my beautiful wedding, my beautiful Bahamas, everything that happened in my life is sitting right here with me.
And all that still comes up through Anastasia.
Yeah. Yeah. And so all who she is comes up. And it's not me. I'm going. And I remember J. Anthony Brown, he said, "You nothing like this woman."
No, and like I say, so I'm getting it's a treat for me to talk to you because you're clearly not that character.
If you see what I have on, now you see her clothes. This is what I go around in most days. My leggings, cut off jeans, and a long shirt.
You just an ordinary down to earth human.
And people have met me at Vons. A lady met me recently at Vons. A lady, it is so funny when you go out because I forget I'm on TV. I don't walk out in the world like, oh, I'm on TV. I forget. I'm out. And so people will look at you straight. And sometimes I'm like, why are they looking at me like, and I forget. And then this woman at the store, she kept doing like that. And then she finally said, "You look like this actress that plays Anastasia Devereaux." I said, "I'm Anastasia." She go, "Oh," and she just fell out. She started hugging me and going on and gushing. And it is so funny. But it feels good to know. She said, "You do so much for my life and you just give me so much joy." And that's what it's all about. And that's a wonderful thing when you can touch somebody's life.
How does acting speak to you? How does it inform your life, the act of acting?
Oh my gosh. I love being someone else. I love it. It's very fulfilling. It's very fulfilling. And I love the collaborative nature of the acting world because you can't do it alone. We have our camera people, sound, lighting, the other actors, wardrobe, all these people coming together to make this happen. It's an amazing feeling. And then people are relying on you. And I make sure I'm prepared. I make sure I know my lines. And that's when it's fun when you go and you know you're prepared and they say action and you bring it. And it's a great feeling that you did it. You did your part in this wheel. You were a cog in a wheel and you did your part. And it's a great feeling. It's an amazing feeling.
I think you have found the best of all worlds because you get to go work with a whole bunch of people you like. It's fun. It's a comedy. It's all those things. And then you can turn around and go home and work in your own mind's eye as a writer. So you get both sides of that world.
That's true. It's true.
I think that's a marvelous thing.
Glory to God. I praise God. Glory, glory, glory. I praise him. Yeah.
Well, I have been having just the most marvelous conversation for not quite an hour now with Alretha Thomas, and we're going to wind the show down just a little bit. And I'm wondering, you've shared with us these amazing stories, but I'm wondering if you have a story or two that you can share with us that's either weird, quirky, offbeat, strange, or just plain funny.
Now, this is kind of a mixture of both. Okay, so this was my first season on assisted living, Tyler Perry assisted living. Now, we're deep in quarantine. The virus is raging, right? So, anytime somebody coughs around you, it kind of, everybody looks, right? They have a medic on set. Why did I eat one of those honey nut bars, the thing that's real crispy? Why did I eat that, Steve? So I eat this thing, right? Not knowing it's a piece in my throat.
Oh.
The top people come down. Now, the last thing you want to be is anybody, all your cast and crew, to think you have COVID. So the top people come down because we just are wrapping the season and we're the new people on the show. Top people come down and are congratulating us, saying you're just with the show and standing there. And I go into a full-blown coughing fit. I'm not talking like sweet, nice, ladylike. It's horrible. It's gagging. I'm so embarrassed. I'm and they're looking at me like this, and everybody's alarmed. And the top lady, the executive producer, get her this talent water, get talent water. The medic thinks I might have COVID. I run, I take off, I jet to the restroom, try to get out of there. So embarrassed. And everybody's in alarm. And I'm thinking, oh my God, they're not going to call me back for season 2, 3, I've ruined it. Oh my God. I'm so embarrassed. It was horrendous. So then why the next scene we have to film, because I'm still paranoid now. The next scene we have to film is a wedding scene. The two lead characters are getting married, and of course, I have to be in the audience. So that means I don't have lines. So now I got to sit there praying that I don't have a coughing fit in front of everybody in the middle of them saying their vows. So I'm literally sitting like this. And if you look closely at that episode, I look real tense because I'm scared to death that I'm going to have another coughing fit. So there's a bottle of water. I have a bottle of water right there. And so David Mann, who's a big, huge star, everybody knows him. And this is my first time. This is the biggest show I've ever on, right? So the director says, okay, rolling. I literally grab for that water right quick and try to take a gulp. And David turns around and says, she's drinking water in the middle. We're rolling still. And it could not have been more of an embarrassing moment, but that is my one story where it was crazy and embarrassing. And I was so glad when I was done with that day.
Everybody probably was looking for the hazmat suits when they were around you.
Oh my God. Medic was asking me, was out there. It was crazy because we were deep in COVID at that point. So anybody coughing, you just figure they got COVID.
Wow. That's so you knew the spotlight was on you at that point.
Oh my God. And not in a good way.
And not in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So last question for you today, Alretha. You've given us a huge amount of great thoughts to chew on and lots of wonderful advice throughout the show. And I'm wondering, though, do you have a single solid piece of advice that you like to give to those who are maybe starting out in either the business of writing or acting, or maybe they're in a little bit trying to get to that next level?
I would say, they say success is where you come into an opportunity and you're prepared. I would say be prepared. Work on your craft. You know, a lot of people they see it and it's shiny and it's bright and you just feel it's just going to happen for you. Yeah, there's stories of people getting discovered here and there, but you don't want to just be discovered and then you don't make it because you don't have the skill set and you haven't done the work. Do the work. If you want to write, take a writing workshop, take a writing class, get into a writing group. If you want to act, take workshops. There are all kinds of workshops. Get with other actors, do some student films, backstage. They have all kinds of jobs. Start building your reel. Work on your craft, work on yourself. Get prepared, be ready. That would be my advice.
I think that is absolutely spectacular and necessary advice because, luck favors the prepared mind is a famous phrase, but it's the same with your craft. If you have talent but no craft, you might get somewhere, but you're going to have a big struggle. But if you prepare yourself, wow, that's a big difference. I think that's terrific advice. Alretha Thomas, this has been a lot of fun for me, and I cannot thank you enough for your time, your energy, and your wisdom in talking to us today on StoryBeat. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been great, and thank you for sharing too. And you have such a great energy, and you make it easy for me. You made it easy for me to be good. Thank you.
And so we've come to the end of today's StoryBeat. If you like this episode, won't you please take a moment to give us a comment, rating, or review on whatever app or platform you're listening to. Your support helps us bring more great StoryBeat episodes to you. StoryBeat is available on all major podcast apps and platforms, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and many others. Until next time, I'm Steve Cuden. And may all your stories be unforgettable.